philosophical points again, just to make sure we understand that Lord Krishna's birth is not ordinary. You know? Even though 10th canto, by the time we have come to the 10th canto, we should actually understand this, because it has been all discussed in the other 9 cantos. And that's why also Prabhupada was always saying one should not jump to the 10th canto without studying the other 9 cantos. But just because that tendency is so strong, not only in India, but especially, of course, in India, that we think, this is just some story, some fable, some mythology. But also in the Western world, when people hear, you know, about Lord Krishna being cowherd boy and he being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, people just simply take it as some Indian mythology. And, yeah, Krishna's birth being ordinary birth. So just to make sure that basically this whole discussion is preparing us for the actual advent of Lord Krishna. So we are kind of ready and we have the right understanding and attitude and so on. And even going through these philosophical facts again and again, still people are not really ready. And I guess that's why Krishna says, Janmakama Divyam. So whoever understands my appearance, not only my activities, but also my appearance, he will not take birth again. So yeah, this topic of understanding actually Krishna's appearance, not so easy. Not so easy. So let us see what Prabhupada is saying here. Purport. Without the basic principle of soul, the body cannot be produced. So-called scientists have tried in many ways to produce a living body in their chemical laboratories, but no one has been able to do it, because unless the spirit soul is present, a body cannot be prepared from material elements. Since scientists are now enamored of theories about the chemical composition of the body, we have challenged many scientists to make even a small egg. The chemicals in eggs can be found very easily. There is a white substance and a yellow substance covered by a shell, and modern scientists should very easily be able to duplicate all this. But even if they were to prepare such an egg and put it in an incubator, this man-made chemical egg would not produce a chicken. The soul must be added, because there is no question of a chemical combination for life. Those who think that life can exist without the soul have therefore been described here as abuddha, foolish rascals. So that's first paragraph. So basically, this one paragraph explains actually the verse more deeply. That yes, without the soul, there is no meaning to the visible body, and doesn't matter how much modern scientists try to create life, well, they're not able to do so. And this is basically also presented in the little booklet, Life Comes from Life. And this simple fact is nevertheless so difficult for people to understand. It's just amazing how this ignorance of the soul leads to so many misconceptions, so many miseries based on this bodily concept of life. It is really quite astounding how deep this ignorance is. Like I remember some time ago I was visiting my mother, and she has all kinds of intellectual and intelligent, so-called intelligent friends. So it was her birthday and some people came, and And naturally, I'm always trying to use the opportunity to do a little bit of preaching. And just the mere fact that there's an existence after death, so tough for people to accept that. And people were saying, oh my God, people were saying, well, you believe this, you think this, we think that. Nobody knows what is happening after death. Even that mere fact of transmigration of the soul, so difficult for people to accept. So I was pondering over this. Why are even these intelligent and educated people so in ignorance? And then the thought came to me that actually a society and a culture where sense gratification is the all in all, people have to keep themselves in this ignorance. Only then they can actually enjoy the senses to the fullest and do whatever they like, right? But as soon as they accept that actually there is a further existence after death and the soul moves on, then one has to accept responsibility for one's activities. And the idea comes up, well, maybe what I'm doing now has some effect on my further existence, right? Then the laws of karma and reincarnation come in. So then you cannot enjoy life to the fullest anymore. So that's why this ignorance is so convenient for people. They like to stay there. They don't want to know. This just really dawned upon me. Only because of this ignorance, people can continue, enjoying the senses and doing whatever feels good, and they actually don't want to know, because then all of a sudden they have to start thinking, they have to start accepting responsibility, and that people don't want. So, yeah, that really hit me when I was meeting these intelligent and educated people who I could feel they were just blocking. They just did not want to go further than that. Even though I was trying to tell them, hey, there's so many experiments, there's so many near-death experiences which so clearly, yes, the soul leaves the body. But people were blocking. People did not want to hear, because that would disturb, their uninhibited ways of enjoying. And therefore, they did not want to know. So, and that's why Prabhupada says, yes, people, they're rascals, actually. They're rascals, because they consciously, or not consciously, subconsciously maybe, they don't want to know, just so they can do all kinds of sinful activities and enjoy life to the fullest and destroy themselves and destroy the whole planet, basically. So let us continue reading further. Again, there are those who reject the body, regarding it as insubstantial. They are of the same category of fools. One can neither reject the body nor accept it as substantial. The substance is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and both the body and the soul are energies of the Supreme Godhead, as described by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:4-5. Pumir aponalo vayu kammano buddhya evacha ahankara itiyame bina pakritya astada apayam itastvanyam pakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dayate jagat. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together, these 8 comprise my separated material energies. But besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mine, which consists of all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. Actually, another translation is there, who are exploiting, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, the translation is who are exploiting material energy. So here slightly, translation is different, saying, Prabhupada says, are sustaining the universe. The body, therefore, has a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the soul does. Since both of them are energies of the Lord, neither of them is false, because they come from the reality. One who does not know this secret of life is described as abudha. According to the Vedic injunctions, Aitadatmyam idam sarvam, sarvam kalvidam brahma. Everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, both the body and the soul are Brahman, since matter and spirit emanate from Brahman. So here Prabhupada takes this whole topic further, actually much further than what the verse says, that he says, no, actually matter and spirit both are coming from Brahman. So it's not that the body is all false, neither can one accept the body as all in all, nor reject it as not being factual. So no, they both come from the Lord. And in that regard, we also have the verse, Devi Shiguna Maye Mama Maya Duatyaya. So this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is very difficult to overcome. So interestingly, that the three modes of material nature are also part of Krishna's divine energy. Divine, Krishna says. Yeah, sometimes we tend to forget that, that they're also part of Krishna's energy. So, yeah, this has to be understood. Otherwise, we make that mistake of simply rejecting whatever is material. And that Prabhupada explains in the next paragraph. He says, not knowing the conclusion of the Vedas, some people accept material nature as a substance, and others accept the spirit soul as substance. But actually, Brahman is the substance. Brahman is the cause of all causes. The ingredients and the immediate cause of this manifested material world are Brahman. And we cannot make the ingredients of his world independent of Brahman. Furthermore, since the ingredients and the immediate cause of this material manifestation are Brahman, both of them are truth. Satya. There is no validity to the expression Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. The world is not false. Right? So that's, it's actually, Prabhupada gives a very logical and simple explanation, right? So logical, yes. Some people, they think the body is the all-in-all, the material world is the all-in-all. Some people say the soul is the all-in-all, and they reject the body, the material world. But no, both comes from Brahman, and therefore both has to be accepted as factual. And this Brahman, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Prabhupada in another purport he explains, this is the attitude of this world is false. There is no use of it. Let us take to Brahman only. Right? Yeah, so that's the impersonalist understanding, the atheistic understanding, actually, yes. So, but that's also not the deeper understanding. And that's, I guess, what the Mayavadis do, the impersonalists. They simply reject everything material, you know, and think, yes, only Brahman is it, and let's merge and so on, you know. And I guess this is where a Sambandha Gyan comes in, you know, the knowledge of Sambandha Gyan that we have to understand. So who am I? Who is the Lord? What is this whole material world all about? Right? That simply Krishna arranges this whole scenario here to give the living entity an opportunity to use everything in his service, for the Lord's pleasure. Right? So that's why the Sambandha Gyan has to be deeply established in our hearts in order to actually practice Krishna consciousness in a balanced way. Because very often we actually find that even we devotees also still suffer a little bit of this misconception, that we tend to negate, you know, the material things, we reject them, you know, that we also, even within Krishna consciousness, we have these two attitudes there, you know, thinking, you know, yes, either Maya is still, the body is the all in all, or simply to reject it all, right? It's in a subtle form, we find it amongst us devotees too. Well, because for so many lifetimes we have been ignoring Krishna, we have been trying to, you know, ignore our relationship and this knowledge of the eternal spirit. So we have been trying to be atheists for so many lifetimes. So very clear, very simple to understand, not so easy to actually transform this. This requires a deeper paradigm shift, really. It's not just an external thing of putting on tilak and neck beads and walking around with a jabba bag or something. But no, we have to transform more deeply our whole attitudes and concepts and let's see what Prabhupada, what else he says in the last paragraph. Jnanis reject this world and foolish persons accept this world as reality, and in this way they are both misguided. Although the body is not as important as the soul, we cannot say that it is false. Yet the body is temporary, and only foolish materialistic persons who do not have full knowledge of the soul regard the temporary body as reality and engage in decorating this body. Both of these pitfalls, rejection of the body as false and acceptance of the body as all in all, can be avoided when one is fully situated in Krishna consciousness. If we regard this world as false, we fall into the category of asuras, who say that this world is unreal, with no foundation and no God in control. There we go. It's basically just one more time atheism. Right? Asatyam apratishtam te jagat atu anishvaram. As described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this is the conclusion of demons. Yes. So, Prabhupada often, and I mean not only Prabhupada, but also Srimad-Bhagavatam, is often describing life in the material world like an illusory dream. Right? So even dreams, they are some kind of reality. Right? We have all kinds of experiences, emotions in dreams. We might be talking, laughing, crying in dreams, even wandering around in dreams or something. So, and we might even, you know, be sweating in fear or something. So we cannot say that they're not at all real. No, there is some reality is there, but it's an illusory reality. So when we wake up, oh, thank God, it was just a dream. So, and same thing is really life in the material world. We cannot say it doesn't exist or it's not real. No, it is real, but it's an illusory reality because it is so temporary. There is a few nice little descriptions of, over the years, I have put together a little verse book here, putting under different topics, whatever I find really powerful and interesting. Let me see, where was it? Oh yeah, here. 4th canto, 29th chapter, 29th verse, in the purport, Prabhupada describes, under the influence of Maya, the living entity becomes exactly like a person haunted by a ghost. This is also a nice comparison, ghostly haunted. Such a person speaks all kinds of nonsense. When the living entity is covered by the influence of Maya, he becomes a so-called scientist, philosopher, politician, or sociologist, and at every moment presents different plans for the benefit of human society. All these plans are ultimately failures because they are illusory. Right? Very nice description, like a person haunted by a ghost, talks so much nonsense, right? And all these plans, of becoming so-called scientist, philosopher, politician, or socialist, or whatever. So many plans, but they're all failures, because they're all not based on the understanding of the soul being eternally connected with the Lord. That's why it's like in mathematics, if we think 1 + 1 = 5, any further mathematics, doesn't matter how advanced and knowledgeable it is, it's going to be wrong, because it's all based on the wrong assumption, the basic wrong assumption. So that's what really happens in life in the material world, because of this ignorance of the soul and the ultimate goal of life and our eternal relationship with the Lord. All these so-called politicians, sociologists, scientists, whatever advancement might be there, it's all a useless waste of time. It's all zero, like Prabhupada gives this example of 0, 0, 0, and okay, we put the 1 in front of it by understanding this basic concept of life. Yes. And there is another one also, which, there's so many, but I wanted to share this other one. Here, this is from 11th canto, 10th chapter, verse number 3, the purport. One who is sleeping may see many objects of sense gratification in a dream, but such pleasurable things are merely creations of the mind and are thus ultimately useless. Similarly, the living entity who is asleep to his spiritual identity also sees many sense objects, but these innumerable objects of temporary gratification are creations of the Lord's illusory potency and have no permanent existence. One who meditates upon them, impelled by the senses, uselessly engages his intelligence. Another nice explanation. So, and also Prabhupada sometimes he is comparing the life in the material world to be like a nonsensical stage performance. I really like that analogy, nonsensical stage performance. That's really what life is all about. Every lifetime is like one act of the nonsensical stage performance. You know, we can just imagine we are on the stage there, playing some role. Okay, this life I'm an American man or a German woman, and we are running around there on the stage. Oh, we are so busy, we've got so many important things to do, running. We're really taking it in like anything, you know, and then death comes, and curtain closes, it's all finished, all over, you know, and then next life, curtain is opening, stage, you know, act 2 of this crazy stage performance here, you know, so again we are in a different situation, and same thing happens again. We're really taking it in, we are running around thinking, oh, I'm so busy, I've got so many important things to do, running, and then death comes, curtain closes, and then again, next life, maybe dog in Sweden, you know, barking like anything, biting, this, that. Again, dog takes it really in, thinks, I'm so important here, I've got so many important things to do, sniffing here, sniffing there, barking, protecting the property, and. You know, so like that it goes lifetime after lifetime. Nonsensical stage performance. That's really what it is. That's really what it is. You know, very nice description. So, and of course, conclusion. How long do you usually go? 8:30. That's including question and answer. No problem. I want to stick to the plan here. So, and of course, the conclusion of it all is really aham sarvasya prabhavo, right? Manta sarvam pravartate. So, understanding I am the source of all spiritual material worlds. That's what Krishna is saying. You know, not only the spiritual one, but also the material one. Krishna is the source of it. So everything emanates from me. That's what he's saying. So, and the wise who perfectly knows this engages in my devotional service and worships me with all their hearts. So that's the conclusion to this whole confusion. You know, that's why we have to deeply understand this sambandha gyan. Who am I? Who is the Lord? What is this whole material world all about? It should not be rejected artificially, but it should also not be accepted as the all in all. No, we are simply meant to use it all for the pleasure of the Lord. It is part of His divine energy. And I mean, just to mention a few little aspects of daily life of a devotee, where we also, I feel we still have this immature understanding of rejecting, you know, is in regards to grihastha ashram, having children. There's so much immaturity there that devotees seriously think having children is all maya, it's all a distraction, it's a burden, it's a disturbance. But no, the point is we have to do it properly. If we actually, you know, practice things properly, if we are trained in the art and science how to invite a special soul to take birth in our family, garbhadan samskara, then bringing, you know, children to this world is the most amazing service, the highest transcendental adventure. But the point is we haven't gotten there yet to actually do things properly. You know, we haven't received that training. Like once, for some years, I was a member of the GBC Committee for Devotee Care, and we had a couple from South India coming and giving some presentation to our Devotee Care Committee. And at that time, their son was 5 years old, and the mother was sharing that throughout her pregnancy, every single day, she was chanting the first 5 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, just the Sanskrit, loudly, every day. And now their son being 5, without any further training, if they chant these chapters anywhere and stop, he knows the next verse. Just by hearing in the room. My God, I was blown out, when I heard this. Of course, we all know Prahlad Maharaj heard in the room, and it's all in the Bhagavatam. And of course, I was always thinking, of course, Prahlad Maharaj would hear in the room. Of course, why not? He would do anything. But I was not clear in this, that these things are still going on now. That it's not just something in the Bhagavatam and that Prahlad Maharaj did, but no, it's still happening now. So, I mean, there's so many deep things which we have not really managed to put into practice. We have not received that education and training yet, and therefore we are still stuck in these immature understandings. And same thing, like here is described in the verse in purport, that many things we are rejecting as being all false and nonsense and maya, Like Prabhupada gives this example of the thorn in the foot. If we have a thorn, we stepped on the thorn, we have a thorn in our foot, very painful, very unpleasant. So what can we do? We can take another thorn and we take that thorn out, right? But one has to be expert. One has to know how to use that thorn to take the first thorn out. So that's what Grihastha Ashram is all about. The man-woman attraction is like the thorn which binds us, but if we are expert, we can take that same thorn and take that thorn out and from the foot. But we have to be expert, otherwise we end up with 2 thorns in our foot. Right? And that's what happens today a lot, because we have not received the proper deeper understanding and training, how to actually transform one's family life into an ashram, that it's really an ashram, And because that deeper understanding and transformation is not there, that's why we reject it all. And basically there is that same misunderstanding in that attitude as Prabhupada is discussing here. Right? We don't deeply understand how to actually, use that situation really for one's advancement. And therefore we try to falsely negate and reject. But then very easily we can also be stuck actually in our spiritual practice, and we cannot really move properly forward because we are not properly situated. So it's a whole thing, and I realize more and more that there is so many deeper aspects which we have not really understood and implemented. We have not really given that systematic training and education to our devotees. And therefore, there's so much immaturity still there, So, just to share with you, some 4 or 5 years ago, I made a humble attempt to establish an institute for spiritual culture. And tonight, in the course, I will bring some brochures along. I have got some nice colorful brochures, and I made the attempt to put all different courses together on systematic training in regards to culture, because culture comes actually about by the practical application of a philosophy, by actually living our philosophy. That's how we get culture in all different aspects of life. And just the fact how foreign Vaishnav culture is to us, it shows that we're not there yet in living it. Right? Yes. We are still, it's for us, in many ways just an interesting philosophy which we like to understand with our brains and we like to memorize it, but to actually apply and live it, we are not quite there yet. We are not quite there yet. And it's not surprising. I mean, our movement here is only 50 years, so it's still pretty young. And it will happen from generation to generation. We gradually, hopefully, get there. I heard Prabhupada disciples sharing that apparently Prabhupada said it will take 10 generations to actually get there. Yes. Yeah, so, but I think it's exciting to somehow be a part of it all. But yes, just to go back one more time to the conclusion of actually understanding, yes, everything comes from Krishna, the material world, the spiritual world, the body, and as well as the soul. And therefore the wise who understands this surrenders and serves and worships Krishna with heart and soul. I do want to share these verses yesterday, which I was briefly commenting because it fits very nicely to the whole topic. This is from Prema Vivata, and it describes perfectly the position of the living entity in the material world. So the verse 7 says, roaming about in the material world, taking one birth after another, if by chance the living entity comes in contact with a saintly person, he becomes immediately knowledgeable of his true identity as pure spirit soul, an eternal servant of Krishna. It says immediately. Unfortunately, for most of us, it's not so immediate. It takes quite some time. The next verse, enlightened by this knowledge, he does not want material entanglement any longer, and he laments, alas, why have I served this illusory material energy for so long? So in other words, if this Sambandha Gyan actually hits the heart, then there has to be that lamentation. There has to be that lamentation. Oh my God, what a fool rascal I have been. I have ignored this relationship for so long. Right? So then, next verse gets even stronger. He bitterly regrets and cries out, Krishna, my Lord, I am your eternal servant. Even ever since I left the shoulder of your lotus feet, my life has been completely devastated. So that's actually the feeling of the living entity deep in the heart, if really this Sambandha Gyan hits the heart. But if it doesn't hit the heart, if it is only on the level of the mind and intelligence, then we don't feel this regret, this bitterly crying out. We think, oh, well, yeah, I've been pretty cool anyway, even before I met the devotees, and I've done so many interesting things, and I've got it all down. And all right, yes, oh, now this Krishna consciousness, I'm simply adding as another interesting thing there to my life. But all up, I'm doing fine. You know, as long as we feel like that in our heart, Sambandha Gyan has not hit the heart, you know. Yes, I mean, even often we might be thinking, yeah, I know I'm servant, I know. But then at the same time, we make so many endeavors and arrangements to enjoy and control. You know, so obviously we don't know. You know, we might know Gyan, you know, theoretical, but it's not Vigyan, it hasn't hit the heart. Otherwise we would stop making all these arrangements and endeavors to enjoy and control. So, yeah, to know means to act on it. Then we know. Right? Yes. So, and unless this Sambandha Gyan really hits the heart, there will not be this regret, this lamentation. We will not really turn towards Krishna and call out to him when we chant japa, for example, you know. Yes. So, anyway, he bitterly regrets and cries out, Krishna, my Lord, I am your eternal servant, ever since I left the shelter of your lotus feet, my life has been completely devastated. So we can even assess ourselves. Do we actually feel like this? You know, do we really seriously, honestly feel like this in the heart? Then Sambandha Gyan has hit our heart. But if we don't feel like that, it's not realized. It's only theory. So and now the next one. Lord Krishna is so merciful that if anyone appeals to him earnestly, he immediately releases the jiva from material entanglement. Wow, that's how it works. You know, if we just approach Krishna like this, with that feeling in the heart, it says Krishna immediately releases the jiva from material entanglement, immediately. And then the next verse makes it even stronger. Lord Krishna fortifies him with his transcendental internal potency. And this overbearing power of the Lord's spiritual potency weakens Maya's influence on the living entity. Amazing. You know, at least I find this really amazing. It just shows what a deep internal process this Krishna consciousness is. It's all a matter of the heart. How we are actually appealing to Krishna with regret, lamentation, crying out in helplessness. And if a living entity does that, then Krishna fortifies him. You know, he builds like a fort around the living entity, made from his internal potency. And that protects the living entity from that influence of Maya, you know? Yes. So it's very amazing. So that's why all our studies, all our knowledge, you know, people study Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, whatnot, you know, actually it is simply meant to bring us to this point. That we say, okay, Krishna is amazing, I'm tiny, insignificant, I better serve, I better surrender. I have no chance here. That's actually what it is meant to bring us to. And of course for preaching to others, it's also good to have a bit of knowledge. But there is a purport also where Prabhupada says, actually, yeah, knowledge can be an advantage to get somebody to the process of serving, devotional service. But it's not absolutely required. If one can immediately take to that process of service, you know, and surrender and lamentation and calling out to Krishna, turning to him, then no real so much need for all this knowledge actually, you know. Yeah, but because we are so much in the head and we are trying to figure out things from the intelligence and so on, so that's why, you know, we need to be convinced on that level, you know, a lot of us anyway, until we can really surrender to Krishna and worship him with all our heart. Okay, so that's all what I wanted to share. Do we have any questions, comments? We'll start with you.
Thank you, Devaki Mataji. On this last point that you made, I was just thinking that we find ourselves in, at least I can say about myself, in two different times of calling out and to Krishna for mercy and finding myself lamenting and feeling regretful about in times that you feel almost like victimized by your own material condition. And you know, at times that happens over and over and over through the years. It doesn't seem like it, you know, there's certain things that are so ingrained in that it takes quite a bit of time. And you find yourself sort of victimized and you feel regretful, you feel lamenting the condition, and you come up to Krishna. So, however, you know, like Prabhupada's purport in the verse in chapter 9 of what is it, Srucha, that if one commits the most sinful, Abhichet Sudaracharam, a verse, Prabhupada comments that we should not take advantage of, you know, constantly going to Krishna and say, I'm sorry, you know. But it seems that that's the, at least in my experience, and also observing other devotees, it seems like that's the general, you know, situation. You go over and over, I mean, years dealing with some similar things. So what is it? Is it I mean, the lamentation is there, the regretful is there, but there is not the capacity to go further. That it doesn't seem that that feels goes very deep. So that means that there is no Sambandha Gyan in the heart. Is that correct? Or what is the explanation of that in accordance to that, you know, taking Sambandha Gyan and being able to call up to Krishna with that feeling of lamentation, and then Krishna immediately responds and, you know.
Well, I dare say there is a subtle difference whether we are simply, you know, turning to Krishna and lamenting, or whether we are actually really inviting him to do the heart surgery, whether we are inviting Lord Nrsingadev to uproot things. You know, that's still a little step further, because very often we are actually deep down, we are still attached to certain, you know, patterns of acting and behavior, and we think we will get some enjoyment from that. You know, so to turn to him and lament, oh, I'm so useless and this and that, that's one thing, but then to really actually urgently request him to help us uproot, that's another thing. And I mean, I always recommend 5 or 6 steps in any kind of transformational process where we want to transform certain patterns of behaviors. That step number 1 is always hearing about the topic. Let's imagine, you know, we are struggling with envy or false ego patterns of behavior. I've got a whole course on the false ego, 10-hour course. The false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker, is the title. So step number 1 is always that we hear how envy, how false ego affects us, and how there is no chance of making spiritual progress by maintaining these kind of tendencies. So first of all, we have to hear, we have to be convinced. You know, we have to become aware, we have to become conscious of all these things. Because before becoming Krishna conscious, we have to become conscious first. And often we are just so damn unconscious, you know? Yes. So first we have to hear and become conscious. So then step number 2 is we have to desire very deeply and you know, sincerely to get rid of these unwanted patterns and establish uplifting patterns. That desire comes through the hearing. So, and then step number 3 is we have to introspect in honesty. We have to honestly look within. We have to reflect. It almost has to become a constant way of being, that we always look within ourselves. What are my motives? Why am I saying this? Why did I just do that? And there has to be some constant reflection and introspection there, and being honest to oneself and to others. So, and then when we, and then the step number 4 is doing this introspection and being honest, we will catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. But that's already progress. At least we catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. Before we didn't even realize. We thought it was all fair and normal. But then we're catching ourselves doing the wrong thing. Oh, again I did this thing, you know, which I shouldn't have done and said and. So, and then catching ourselves doing the wrong thing, that should lead to that lamentation and crying out, oh Krishna, please help me to get rid of this. I want to kick this out of my life. You know, that there has to be, the lamentation has to be combined with this serious hankering of kicking out these unwanted things. Otherwise, if that's not seriously there, because ultimately we have to admit, you know, most of these anarthas, they're like demons in our heart, and we, out of our own strength, we actually cannot get rid of them. We have carried them with us for so many lifetimes in the subtle body of mind, intelligence, thoughts, ego. Not so easy by our own strength, impossible. So we have to really earnestly appeal to Krishna to do the needful. But we are not really, you know. We still think all this envy and false ego will give us some gratification and enjoyment. And that's why we actually we somewhere lament, but we also hang on to it, you know. So, but if we do this work of introspection, catching ourselves doing the wrong thing and crying out sincerely to Krishna, if we do that internal work, then sooner or later we catch ourselves doing the right thing. We realize, all of a sudden I actually managed to just shut up and be quiet and just let it go by, rather than reacting and defending and arguing or something. You know, then we realize actually the process works. It works. But one has to be willing to do this, you know, this internal work. And that's when we agree to do this internal work, then we are actually making advancement. Then we are actually starting to become purified. Then we are getting ahead. Often we take things as so external. We think if we just get up there in the ladder of hierarchy and, oh, I'm a senior devotee, 30 years around, and you know, that this is progress. No, that's just all the external part. The real part is the internal work. And unless we agree to do this internal work, we can be so stuck in our patterns of behaviors. You know, it's like elephant taking baths. We might be chanting, but then immediately we throw back the dirt over our back by again acting according to all these envious and ego patterns of behavior. And that's exactly why we need Vaishnava culture and etiquette. Because Krishna gives us that framework, how to act, you know, and how to gradually rehabilitate ourselves, you know, and establish humble, you know, humble patterns of behavior. The patterns of behavior of insignificant, humble servant of the servant. That's a big job. It requires some internal transformation. And it doesn't happen just automatically, just by going externally through the motions, you know? It's a whole big topic. One can easily miss completely the target of devotional life by doing the opposite what we should be doing. Instead of dissolving and subduing the false ego, we just feed it and blow it up and massage each other's egos and all that. It's all going on massively, massively. You know, and with that kind of patterns of behavior, we can't even get the full potency and benefit that the holy name carries. That's why Mahaprabhu says, Trinada Pisa Nichana. You know, so we have to chant the holy name actually in a humble state of mind. Only like that we can feelingly call out to him. So as long as we are maintaining all these ego patterns of behaviors, you know, we don't get anywhere much, you know. It's like the 10th offense, to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. That's what we are doing. We are maintaining that material attachment of having our egos gratified. Very subtle. That's how subtle it gets, you know? And with this kind of attachment, yeah, we cannot get the real benefit of the holy name. So that's exactly why we need this culture and etiquette. And we badly need it. We will discover in the course also, you know, yes. Any other? Yes, Prabhu.
Very nice class. In the 5th paragraph, in the purport, Prabhupada explains that these material ingredients are also Brahma.
Yes.
So how can you explain? Because I could not understand.
Well, because the ultimate cause is Krishna. It emanates from Krishna, so it is his divine energy. Devi Gunamayi, you know, there Krishna says, this divine energy consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, he's calling it divine. You know? So, that's why we deeply have to understand that actually everything ultimately emanates from the Supreme Lord. Not only the spirit souls, but also the body. I mean, even there we also come across often this immature understanding that people think, the body is all Maya, you know, and they're neglectful towards the body. It's actually the same misunderstanding as the Mayavadis and atheists have, you know, that we are neglectful, we don't appreciate that the body is also part of Krishna's energy, and it's a gift. We have to maintain it, we have to respect it. You know? It's not, it's all Maya, body is Maya, I'm not this body, you know? It's exactly the same immaturity and attitude of rejection behind it. No, it's all part of Krishna's divine energy. And therefore we have to respect both of them and understand them for what they are, you know, and what they're meant for, the deeper purpose. How to use the fact, you know, that we have gotten a body. How to make the best out of the bad bargain, because it all comes from Krishna, everything.
Again, question is coming that is it not right to say that Brahma is existing, or is it manifesting in that all the material ingredients? If so, then should be alive, because Brahma or the soul, super soul, is present in the living entity.
It's hard for me to understand you acoustically, and then your accent, and that, I couldn't quite capture.
Again, I will explain slowly. Thing is that since Brahma is existing in every ingredients.
In every?
Ingredients. So, why can't they be alive?
Why can't they be?
Alive, have life.
Huh?
Life.
Life? I don't understand. Anyway, see, it's simple for the simple and complicated for the complicated. So for me, it's very simple. It simply means, you know, the body has to be accepted, and all the material things have to be accepted as part of Krishna's energy, as well as, you know, the eternal soul and life energy has to be understood as part of Krishna's energy. So therefore, as Prabhupada explained in the purport, you know, some take the body and material world as the all in all, and they're completely ignorant of the soul. And some do the opposite. They take the soul and the spirit as the all in all, and they reject, the body and the material world as simply being non-existing and illusion, all not fact, not real. So now, everything comes from Krishna, and therefore everything has to be understood as emanating and being as his part and parcel, his energy, and therefore it has to be respected and used, according to what it is meant to be for. And that's why the conclusion is, whoever understands this knowledge simply worships Krishna with all their hearts, engages the body, the senses in his service. That's our philosophy. Whereas the Mayavadis, they reject all the senses and try to negate, But as we know, that doesn't lead to anything, so the senses want some engagement, so therefore we use them in Krishna's service, But the Mayavadis have that negating and rejecting tendency. It's all false, and therefore we do nothing, Right? Yes, brother. Last question. 10 to 9 already.
We get devotees from all over the world. It seems like you're coming from Germany. Seems like an interesting place. How's the...
Actually, I haven't lived there for 35 years.
Oh.
I've never been part of the German yatra.
I see. That's...
I'm visiting there since the last 4 or 5 years, but I've never read Prabhupada's books in German. I find it difficult to give a German class in German language, so... But anyway, go on. I guess I didn't introduce myself. I wanted to keep that for tonight before we start the seminar,
Yeah, I was just wondering, well, you're observing it from a distance. I remember Hansadutta, Prabhupada had him go there, and they had trouble, and I was wondering how it's being managed now. Is it flourishing, or the ISKCON in Germany, or you don't know?
Germany. Oh, well, I do know, because just to quickly fill you up in the details, so I left Germany in '84, before I even met the devotees. Oh. And I traveled the world, and I met the devotees in Sydney, in Australia. Oh. And I joined there. I was 4 years in Australia in the Brahmatrini ashram. Then I was married for 10 years, and during that time, by Krishna's arrangement, we established the first more organized temple in the former Soviet Union. So, and then 1999, my husband left Krishna consciousness, and I moved on into the renounced phase of life. So now I'm constantly traveling. I'm living out of a suitcase. I spend 6 months per year in India and Bangladesh. Spend a lot of time in Bangladesh. That's why I got all these cultural insights. And I spent 6 months per year all over Europe. I spent more time in Eastern Europe, like Ukraine. I spent a lot of time in Ukraine, Moldova, Croatia, Slovenia, all these kind of countries. And all right, I'm, maybe 3 weeks in Germany out of the year or something.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, but I have some idea about German yatra, so I mean, not easy, and also the whole Harikesh episode really wiped out a whole generation of devotees, and gradually it's going back up, and they're making new devotees, but yeah, not so easy, because, the higher the standard of life is, the less people have interest in spiritual practice.
Right.
Definitely. That's the nectar flows in countries like Bangladesh and Ukraine. Very simple lifestyle. Yeah. Not much sense gratification available, not much material satisfaction there. So the more material satisfaction, the less interest in spiritual life. You
'Cause
know,
I
and that you can see in countries like Germany also.
Because I know that the Germans were interested in the Sanskrit language, and like Hitler and the Skanda Purana and stuff like that. So
Yes, these things are there, but higher standard of life and opulence always brings more pride and material satisfaction along, and they are, Prabhupada says this in one purport in the first canto, they are, so to speak, disqualifications for progress in material and spiritual development.
too many choices for sense gratification.
Yeah, people, you know, the minds are too absorbed in money and sense enjoyment, and then there's not that much interest.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have heard about this gigantic festival in Ukraine, this Bhakti Sangam festival we have every year. There's 8,000 devotees coming together, and they mainly come from Ukraine, because 2 weeks later the similar festival is happening in Russia. 8,000 devotees for 1 week. There's about 25 preachers, sannyasis, kirtanias coming. Wow. So I made a humble attempt to introduce the same festival in Scandinavia, in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland. So you have a guess, how many devotees come there?
I see.
You have a guess? I'm asking you.
I don't.
So in Ukraine you get 8,000 people, so how many in Scandinavia? Huh? You must be joking.
Less than that?
Hardly even 200. So I think these figures speak for themselves, you know? Too much material satisfaction, complacency.
Yes.
Or, you know, the normal Sunday program in Kiev, that's the capital of Ukraine, you get about 800 people, just the normal Sunday program, no Swami being there or nothing, just normal Sunday feast. So normal Sunday feast in Berlin, you get about 50. 50. So, figures speak for themselves, no need to explain any further, you know. So the places where really the nectar is flowing is Ukraine and Bangladesh.
Nice.
Bangladesh, we have hundreds of brahmacharis, and ooh, it's completely vibrant and dynamic and
Well,
really
thanks for the numbers.
amazing.
And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please come tonight, 7 o'clock, we will start our seminar upstairs in the room. 6:30 is some dinner, and 7 o'clock sharp we meet up there. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Kanta Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
There's a very close relationship between poverty and the need of God.
That's right. Very true.